Welcome everybody to night 2 of the Cyber Pipe Showdown. I'm Eli Harrington, Vermont Tawana, joined here by my guest Rajan Tech. Raj, thanks for being back here.
Great to be here.
So we've opened the competition 24 hours in, thousands of website views, thousands of votes, a ton of people checking these artists out. Great competition. Now the bracket is officially closed. So a big shout out. We're going to get into our full bracket breakdown. Tonight it's presented by Fresh Glass Co. Talk about them in a second. But we need to give a huge shout out to Glass Torch Technologies and Moodmats for presenting this, making this unique, one-of-a-kind event possible. So thank you for making that possible to all of our sponsors, all of our collaborators. Raj, like I said, we're going to get into this and kind of go through each of these pieces. We've got videos for folks. And really, tonight, I'm going to be leaning on you quite a bit because you're going to be giving us breakdowns of some of the techniques, some of the technology, and what some of these artists are doing. So, before we get into that, want to just give another shout out to the Burn Gallery crew here and the Pipe Classic team, Cyber Pipe Showdown. Again, our bracket breakdown live tonight is brought to you by Fresh Glass Co. You folks see us floating out here in the space station. We did not come alone. We brought Fresh Glass Co. with us. So, obviously, important time to be keeping all of our glass clean. Always important, right? I mean, dirty glass, it's ridiculous to me. People have
It's unhealthy.
Unbelievable pieces like this. Exactly. And then they let them get dirty, let them get gross. It's unhealthy. So, Fresh Glass Co., really appreciate your support for the Bracket Breakdown Live tonight. You'll also see on our bracket, we got Sunset Lake CBD, who's presenting the whole thing. So, we're going to spend a lot of time on this bracket tonight and talk about our round 1 matchups and results. Now, we did have a few disqualifications. We talked about those last night. Some artists who were going too hard. And just to remind folks, Raj, this is a competition, right? So give us a little bit of perspective of, what these artists did to get ready for this, how many hours have gone into this, and just kind of give folks a reminder of sort of the format that this works.
Sure. So each artist is given a set amount of time to submit their piece. They have to submit a video submission, some picture submissions. But before all that happens, they need to even think of a piece to make.
Right.
I mean, glass is a medium where anything is possible. Every day we're breaking new bounds. We're finding new ways to move it around and get new effects. And when you have that many options, it can be hard to just land on a piece that you want to make, you're capable of making. You have the materials for, and that you think can win. I mean, so many things have to line up for you, and then you really just have to go at it and roll the dice and hope that you come out the other side alive. It's just...
Well, and reminding folks, again, that this is a competition. Folks, these artists out here are making these pieces specific for this competition. And that's why a lot of these folks were disqualified. No shenanigans or anything like that. But because they weren't able to hit the deadline or a piece broke or a video issue. So a big shout out to all of our competitors, dozens if not hundreds of hours going into this, all the time spent, all the materials to produce 32 amazing pieces, which have been whittled into 16 matchups. So we have got 8 brackets, 8 matchups on either side of the bracket. Again, burngallery.com. If you are not registered to vote yet, make sure you're signed up. Your vote's only going to count more and more as we move forward, and we see people out there already voting on round 2. So we appreciate you folks sticking around with us here. What we want to do is go through each one of these pieces, give the artist some attention, really kind of get into this, and really examine some of this beautiful work and spotlight these artists. Because again, that's really what this is about. This community, the artists, the collectors, the stores, everybody who makes this possible. So let's go ahead and look at our first piece here. We had Hoobs and Bearclaw, and as we mentioned, we had Bearclaw disqualified. But I know that we wanted to go ahead and pull that Hoobs piece up because we are going to be taking a look at this. This will be the only night where we'll have these automatic people moving on here from disqualification. Moving forward after this, everything's going to be a matchup and a competition.
Absolutely. You're going to have to beat somebody.
So we're going to be talking about all of the folks who did advance automatically or by winning. We're going to be talking about their pieces more in the coming nights. we're going to talk about some of the other pieces tonight in a little bit more detail. So we see Hoobs' piece over the shoulder here. We, again, break down more of this tomorrow, and folks who are live on the bracket can already see who will be facing off. But in a very hotly contested matchup, and again, that's one thing that we saw last year and one thing that we know we are going to see this year. Tight competitions, interesting voting strategies, right? Because, I mean, these artists, they got to get their fans out there to vote, right?
Yeah, and I mean, the level of competition compared to last year is tenfold. You have people who are just absolute OGs, and they came to win.
Right.
And we're seeing that right here in this piece. This is a phenomenal piece. Hoobs moving on to the next round. Congratulations.
All right, and let's look at our first contested matchup. We mentioned a little bit, Mclamb Glass and Jason Howard.
Yeah.
And as you folks can see on there, we've got Jason Howard moving on just barely. But, Raj, I know you had a little breakdown prepared for us, and we're actually going to talk a little bit about the Mclamb piece, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This matchup of all the matchups was, in my opinion, one of the most closely contested. They were neck and neck basically the whole day. The Mclamb piece, the thing I love about Mclamb as a competitor is that he always brings a new technique. And it's not like this is a technique that's in progress. This is like, boom, this is the technique. And this year he really leaned on his fundamental skills. He didn't lean into his technical side, which is very vast. I don't know if a lot of people know that about Mclamb, but he is an incredibly intelligent person, and he knows a lot about technology and how to build things. And in the past, he has leaned on those. This year, he went strictly glass blowing. I actually had to message him and ask him if that hand was 3D printed because it was so well done. And it turns out it's not. He made that out of glass. This whole piece is glass. I love that about this submission. Diving in a little further, can we get that first clip? So the thing that really struck me about this is when people are networking, oftentimes you have to stick a piece of glass in there and you're limited by any barriers in between. What he did here, which is very clever, is he laid down a bunch of pieces all at once and actually bent them over each other in order to make a crosshatch pattern so that there's many more points of connection. And then, after the fact, used gravity to level them all out into a single plane again. I thought that was very well done. And the other thing that really struck me about his piece is it seems like every piece of rod has been reworked. A lot of times you can just take the whole rod and shape it as you will, but it seems like he took the time to pull each one out to a specific diameter to suit the piece. And that level of attention is really next level.
Well, and like you said, I mean, even some of these techniques, I remember when we did this the first time last year, talking about, what is networking and familiarizing folks with some of these terms, right? Because people see these things, but they don't always know exactly what they mean. And that's sort of part of my role here as the straight guy, not to just check on everybody's probation status, here with a shaved head, but also to kind of give a little context to the folks who are newer to the glass community and especially not as familiar with kind of the behind the scenes and the artistic side. So whenever we have these terms, if you have questions, drop them on YouTube, drop them on Facebook. We are checking everything, and we'll go back and explain stuff. But that breakdown of the networking, and the difference of technique of what some of these artists do to differentiate themselves, and maybe what they pick up from some of their other peers as well. Okay, so we had the Mclamb piece and the J. Howard piece.
And actually, there was another aspect of this Mclamb piece I wanted to pull up. So a lot of times, you've seen people make stringer stack milli where they put the image at the end of the tube and they work their way up that tube, basically matching the colors to the image behind it, and that's how they develop that image.
Okay.
Because otherwise, you're just stacking stringers that could go anywhere, and that really helps keep you on course. This is the first time I've ever seen anybody use it for networking. I thought that was incredibly ingenious.
And these are, again, the use of these different techniques on top of each other, some kind of analysis that you don't always see other ways. So, Raj, I want to encourage you, plug your Instagram here, Raj and Tech, too, because we know that you're always talking with folks. Yeah, Raj _ Tech. We know that you're talking with folks, a big part of this community, and appreciate sharing this expertise with us. So, I think if we're ready to move on, we are ready. Okay, so we also had Blossom Glass, who is moving on. against Robo Glass.
Yeah.
Blossom Glass, remember from last year, we'll talk about that piece in more detail, but I know you had a breakdown on the Robo Glass piece
Sure,
as well.
sure. Let's pull up that first clip from Robo.
Just so eye-catching.
So the thing that noticed here is he seems to be using a rubber glove for grip, which is a really smart technical advantage.
like
I've seen
this?
a lot of people, you know, when you're holding a big piece at the end of a skinny tube, you have two choices. You can either get a bigger tube, so you have more surface area, you have more grip, you have more torque. But as you go skinnier, or as that piece gets bigger than maybe you anticipated, the torque of that weight, it's gonna eat away at your hand. It's gonna fold right over. And so sometimes when that happens, you have a couple of choices. You can add more grip, and I've seen people use grip tape, beeswax, spit, you know, all sorts of stuff, you know. And he seems to be using what looks like a rubber glove, and I thought that was a great move. His piece is not moving on, but there's so much about it that's just really well done. His terminations are sharp, his color game really on point, and as you can kind of see in this picture, he built it up in such a way that when he got towards the end, he was really running out of elbow room. He could only get his torch in so many ways, but he still went for it, and he pulled it off, and I think it was a great piece.
And again, you know, being able to look beyond these, we encourage you folks at burngallery.com. You can actually see videos of all the competitors and get to know them a little bit more. And we encourage you, follow these artists too. You know, support them beyond this competition. Something catches your eye, even if it doesn't move on in the bracket. You know, it's really just a great opportunity for these artists to be spotlighted.
Absolutely.
You know, and see these pieces, which, you know, are going to stick with people whether they move on or not. So, all right, VT Burrow. Moving on past Blue Soldier Art in one of our uncontested, going to be facing off against Blossom Glass in the next round. And then we also had Punty, familiar name in the Pipe Classic scene, faced off against Kairu Glass, moved on automatically. Now, towards the bottom of the bracket, we had Oak and Natey Love doing battle.
Yeah.
And this is one we were talking about before, this this Oak piece. So I know you had a little breakdown on it because this was something that, you know, nostalgic, eye-catching, you know, for a lot of us, especially of a certain age and generation, you know, and a piece that I thought was really well done. But I know you had some notes for us on that Oak piece as well.
Well, first off, congratulations, Oak, for coming back again a second year.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes the weight of a loss can just crush somebody's soul. When, like I said, there's so much on the line, and when you don't win, sometimes that can just really take the wind out of somebody. So it's great to see someone like Oak just pushing through that, coming back again, coming back better. And he's a very fundamentalist competitor. You know, he knows what he does good, and he leans into that. And we saw that in this piece. Are we able to pull up that clip?
I think Oak's from here in the Northeast, right? Repping Quebec, I believe.
Canada? Is that it? Yeah.
I believe so.
So the thing I really noticed here is how he used that fiber blanket to kind of tilt the piece back. When most pieces get lost, it's when you start going horizontal. You have, you know, all this weight hanging from the piece, either, you know, underside or overside while you're working it. And then when you start to go back, that's when that weight really wants to torque on the handle, and that's when most pieces get lost. So he made a good move there, really supporting it and bringing it under, and then actually using that, he was able to just place it right in the kiln. Unlike one of those thermal pads, you actually have to lift it off of that into the kiln, and then once again, you're putting the full lateral weight on that piece, even for a brief moment. Even if you're taking it in and out of the kiln, things can just fall and crash.
Well, and this is something, you know, people have been devastated at Pipe Classic, you know, and this is a big part of, I think, pipe making competitions, glass competitions, right, is not only designing these, making these, executing them, part of that execution is just moving stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, it's happened, the burn gallery floors, you know, have seen RIP, have seen some beautiful glass get destroyed just moving from one spot to another after we thought everything was all said and done. So I think another thing, you know, having the artist perspective is looking at all those points of vulnerability, because that's where you see the skill, right? And the technique is, you know, being able to make this executed, but also it's got to make it to the kiln, got to make it out.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
All right, wonderful.
Congratulations, Natey, for moving on.
I was gonna say, let's not, we will not to just fly over the winners here. We're gonna be talking about all these folks, and can already see the bracket starting to fill up with votes. Which again, voting for the second round is open, so feel free to slide in there. Now, this one is one we were watching right up until the end. KT Scissor Baby going up against Shaggy, narrowly scrapes by less than 20 votes. And interesting, this is a competition. It's pure democracy.
Absolutely.
It's people out there clicking the button, being registered voters per the website, which you can see instructions at burngallery.com, and then really rallying people. And they might all vote at once in the beginning to build a big lead. Visually that might help. They might all vote towards the end to try to make a run at the end. So very close matchup. Big shout out to KT Scissor Baby and also to Shaggy, for such a close breakdown.
And I mean, like you said, there's a campaigning aspect to it. How well do we draw people from our social media and our friends and our family and bring them to the event? And it really helps grow everyone else's votes too, because they're not just here voting for you, they're voting on every bracket.
Right.
And so it's all really just a community driven thing. It doesn't necessarily matter if this person has more followers or however it goes. They're all being pushed into this pool. And if there's anything we've learned from the past pipe classics that are physical, everyone brings a different size posse, and most oftentimes people vote outside of their posse because they just, something about a certain piece catches them so much more.
Right. Well, it's part of that overlap too, right?
Yeah.
And kind of elevating everybody with this.
Right.
Now I know these are two amazing pieces here, and I know that we have video for both of them, right?
And so there was a couple things that really struck me about this Scissor Baby piece. Is she hand mixed a lot of this color, and when you're competing in person, you don't really have that luxury. It's a time-consuming process. As you're burning that glass, you're eating away at it. It gradually does lose workability. At a certain point, it devolves into a non-compatible state. And on top of that, she's using a very difficult to work color. And so the fact that she went the extra mile, kudos. The fact that she used that strategically, kudos. And I see this a lot, but a lot of times when people sculpt a figure, it's usually a lady. And the fact that she went to sculpt a guy, that's just...
Hey, a little diversity in the glass scene, right? I mean, it is nice. You do get to see some of the artist personality behind the scenes here.
Yes.
And, it was kind of reminiscent almost of, like the Oscars statue when you just kind of first glance and see that statuesque figure.
Yeah. And actually, can we pull up a couple of those Shaggy clips? So here we see him going in, and he used a foot as the base of the piece, which I think is very clever because it allows you to get a really wide base by sweating a lot less. When you have to blow a bubble out wide, you're hugging that torch, you're heating a huge piece of glass, and to get it to blow out and have your wall weight even, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of sweating, and it's gonna burn you out pretty quickly.
Yep.
So the fact that he went for a foot to get that base, because his piece was huge, and it looked really thick and really heavy. I mean, he put a lot of layers on that face to sculpt it. He put a lot of attachments on this thing.
Oh, I mean the 40 bottle, it's just like, it's extremely collectible. A lot of these pieces, this one jumped out at me.
Absolutely. So well done, Shaggy. Well done, Katie. Congratulations, Katie, for moving on to the next round.
All right, and then the last matchup that we had on that side, and again, that is the Sunset Lake CBD bracket, we had Hensley Art Glass moving on past Happy Time Glass. So we can see votes already starting to come in. We will have round 2 tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Every night here, presented by Glass Torch Technologies and Moodmats. A good reminder before we move over to the other side, Glass Torch Technologies. Prize we have up for grabs here is some serious technology, right? We've got some serious torches. I think we'll be able to actually show them to folks later on in the week. But, this really is a big deal for the competitors. This is the kind of technology that, can help set you up in the future. So
yes,
we really thank Glass Torch Technologies and Moodmats again for making that possible. And one more time, if you're watching this at home, make sure you are cleaning out your glass. If you're with us there, your rigs, your connectors, everything you're not thinking about, Fresh Glass Co. 99. It's been hard to get this stuff for the last few years, so encourage you to stock up in particular. And a big shout out to Fresh Glass Co. for even out here in space, keeping all of our heady rigs nice and clean. So let's move over to the other side of our bracket, Raj. We had up top Jaywalker Glass, moved on past Catfish John, which I was really excited to see the piece that was produced by Catfish John. I love, just as an outsider coming to this, some of the handles that you find out. And then you get to meet the people behind the handles, you know, and sometimes it's even more ridiculous, you know. So a big shout out, Jaywalker Glass, moving on. We had Subliminal Glass in this next matchup. It was Subliminal Glass versus Gibson's Glass. And you could see Subliminal Glass, one of the top vote getters overall, one of the higher vote tallies that we saw throughout. So that's something we look on early on as an early indicator for what pieces people are sort of connecting with early, right? So Subliminal Glass matching up with Gibson Glass. What do we have for a breakdown here on the Gibson piece, Raj?
Yeah, let's pull up that Gibson clip. So here we see him using lathe. Now, I don't think there's a technical rule in Pipe Classic that says you can't bring a lathe. I think just nobody has really wanted to move their lathe or had the ability to move it or wanted to compete with it. But here we see he was able to use that to his advantage because this is the Cyber Pipe Showdown. And it's a slightly different build on the competition. You are allowed to use those tools in your shop that you normally wouldn't be able to bring, and
feel
he
free,
used that to his
that back
advantage.
Again, just so folks can check out that lathe setup, because I know we want to bring folks inside the competitors' studios, give them a little taste of what they're working with here. Incredibly good point there, Raj. You know, Pipe Classic, it's so much about time, you know, and capacity and being squeezed in and doing it upstairs here at the Burn Gallery, beautiful Burlington, Vermont. Cyber Pipe Showdown, folks have a lot more flexibility. You know, you mentioned KT Scissor Baby being able to mix her own colors, you know, and, you know, in this case, Gibson Glass being able to actually, you know, incorporate the lathe into this. So
Yeah.
I like that we checked that. So maybe this will be the first year. I can hear Tito groaning over there already, thinking about people bringing lathes into the shop, that somebody will try that. So other notes with the Gibson Glass piece here. I know that we had one other.
Yeah, I mean, he really used that lathe to his advantage, and he went big. Now, I can't quite remember what I was going to say about this one.
This was our piece with, this is Gibson and Subliminal still here.
Yes,
Yep.
just a moment.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that jumped out at me, again, when you just look at all these sort of going piece by piece, different themes that come out, you know, as far as different artists, and another reason to go check them out, because one thing I'll just tell folks, getting into the Instagram pages, is this person always making, you know, is it elephant on the string, is that their thing? You know, is it chinoiserie, is it a pattern, is it a style? You know, kind of what they do. So
Yeah.
that's something I'm always looking at, especially with these super stylized pieces.
So this is why I couldn't remember what I was going to say about this one, is because I couldn't figure out what he was doing. As a competitor, I was like, you have this thing, it looks like some sort of rope, and I can't figure out if that's a fiber rope, and I would really like to hear from him later on in the week about what that move was, because it seems very deliberate.
I like this. So this is another part of, again, having these videos for competitors to showcase their technique. I know one thing I wanted to mention to folks, tomorrow, Wednesday at 5:30, you've actually got an Instagram Live Q&A with Captain Crunk himself, Krunkelstein, two-time winner of the Pipe Classic, back-to-back. That's presented by North Jersey Diamond Wheel. So really, make sure you folks are checking that out. That's going to be 5:30 p.m. tomorrow on the Pipe Classic Instagram channel. So we will be able to go behind the scenes a little bit more with some of these artists. And, you know, if you can stump the Raj, well done. So our next piece that we had, Ducks Glass and Rhodes Glass. We've got Ducks Glass moving on, be facing off against Frankie Hess. But I know that we had some notes about the Rhodes Glass piece itself.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations, Ducks. That is a phenomenal piece. He came with the shimmer, he came with the shine, he's got contrast, he's got colors all over the place. That is a loud piece, and I think that's really what allowed him to win this bracket. Now, Rhodes went heavy on the fume, and the thing about fume is it's really hard to stand out. I mean, there's so many things about Rhodes' entry that were on point. He had the size, he had the function, he had just high quality videos, high quality photos. Everything about that piece was high quality, but I think he did move on from this bracket due to the fume. And the thing about fume is, like they say, it's the first thing you learn and the last thing you master. And to really create a style out of fume that stands out from the rest is incredibly hard. First, you have to have something about the way you do it that's visually unique and then repeatable. But the nature of fume is that it's a cloud of smoke getting blasted at a piece of hot glass, and it's incredibly hard to control. It's incredibly, it changes throughout the entire process of you working it. He was able to control that enough to really balance his yellows and greens. Those encalmos are deliberate, they're well done. But I think against the high contrast, the shimmer, the shine, the color choice of ducks, it was a hard one to beat.
Well, and this is a big thing, right? I mean, people eat with you eat with your eyes.
Yeah.
You know, and this is a big part of the digital format. You know, that you've got the video, but it's also just a lot of that is the reaction. And so we look at this. You know, this is not a council of small people voting on this like the Pipe Classic. This is really the public. So this is kind of a spotlight for us into what folks are looking at. And like you said, that eye-catching, you know, sort of just the contrast, the brightness from that ducks piece, you know, and Rhodes, who it's like a pipe maker's pipe, right? Appreciating all that intricate detail, you know, but maybe the restrictions of the material of the style, or for whatever reason not reverberating.
Yes.
You know, a huge shout out to all the folks, especially in the YouTube chat. Like and subscribe. That's how you folks help us grow this. You know, share it with your friends. But please make sure to subscribe. YouTube really loves that. I know we got Torch Talk in there. They're one of our sponsors. We're going to be shouting you folks out all week. We appreciate you all. Sir Dirty, Glass Surfer, Joey One Love, Timothy Marceau, all the other Canadians out there representing. Thank you all. So appreciate that. Getting back into some of the glass, and again, you know, shout out to both Rhodes and Duke's Glass. Moving on, we've got Frankie Hess moved on automatically past Mama's Glass. So Frankie's going to be up against Duke's Glass. Already starting to go down. And then we had Tammy effin' Baller. I'm not going to read it just because YouTube, Facebook, we're already doing enough allegedly algorithmically illegal stuff here. So Tammy Blanken Baller, one of our favorite competitors in person, moved on past Scolari Glass automatically. And then we had Dr. Jones face off against Joe Morrison. We had Joe Morrison edge that out 125-79, so it's going to be Tammy Baller and Joe Morrison in the second round over there.
Yeah, let's check out that Dr. John's piece. And so here we can bring us back to that lateral thing I was talking about. When you have that weight horizontally, you know, that's when things are going to break. So he really did a clever thing here by setting that whole piece down horizontally and then taking that mouthpiece off. Now, unfortunately, like I was saying, you can get a bigger tube to help with that torque, but in order to maintain his design aesthetic, he was limited by the size of that mouthpiece. So even on that blow tube, you can see it's kind of bubbling out from a small connection. So that piece was particularly prone to falling off, and he made sure to not have that happen. The other things he did incredibly well. I mean, the sculpting on those pieces. Is that slideshow available? There's so many nice little details here. I mean, the shocks on the springs, the banana in the hand, the mustaches and the eyes, they're all melted in well, but still crisp. The movement of the piece, there's like there's an action happening there. His concept skills were through the roof.
Well,
on this
and
one.
I mean, you know, this is such a collectible piece. This is such an appealing piece, you know, for folks not even in the glass scene, but it's like, who doesn't know, you know, Wario, Waluigi, you know, who hasn't played Mario Kart? Like, it's interesting too, you know, looking at the different pieces. We talked about this earlier with the Transformers piece, you know, that we had from Oak.
Yeah.
You know, what's resonating with people. you know, and what you're hitting on as far as pop culture, whether it's something like COVID or a popular video game or movie or music or something like that.
Yes, yes.
You know, but like you said, yeah, the details in there and just the nostalgia factor, the kind of like familiarity.
Yeah.
You know, that's a piece not going to be available long.
And that Joe Morrison piece, I mean, he came back bigger and better than last year, which is exactly what you want to see. He didn't shift too much from, you know, his core style and concept and everything. He just brought it to a new level.
Yeah.
And that's a very strong move to make. Well done. It paid off. He's going to the next round.
Well, and we see this a lot with successful, you know, artists. They have that style. You know, we talked about some before, whether it's an animal or a, you know, or a pattern or kind of a technique or whatever it is. You know, and this is something we've seen year two with Joe. For people who are watching this again, who were here last year, you know, I still remember that piece. And as soon as I saw this one this year, I immediately remembered. So,
Exactly.
you know, you do get a chance to get familiar with some of these folks too. And a reminder, follow them all on social media, you know, because you're going to find something that you like. And these folks are from all over the place too. You know, just like one really nice thing we'll just say about the digital aspect of this, not everybody can come to Burlington, Vermont for a week, you know, in September and take part in this in person.
Yeah, they
And,
should, but
you know, they should, and we hope you will next year. Pipe Classic coming back in 2022. I know we're pumped to share this basement with a lot of our friends, you know, but one aspect of this competition, the Cyber Pipe Showdown, you know, is really that it is a national, international, you know, huge thing. So check out where these artists are from, because you never know. Somebody might be in a place like Milwaukee, Wisconsin, doing some of the most amazing glass you've ever seen. And there's a ton of people in the Midwest out there crushing it. So shout out to Terry Sharp, one of our finalists last year. Wasn't able to make it through this year. Was disqualified. Faced off against Duran Glass. Duran Glass, strong showing with the total votes already in round two. That's going to be a heavyweight. So we have got Duran Glass moving on automatically. We've also got Simple Glass moved automatically on past Mclamb. So looking at our bracket, and if, again, burngallery.com, this is where you folks go to find all this. You can see we've already got votes that are coming in here. But we do also want to hear from people what's hitting. You know, what is it that is appealing to you, especially the voters, right? I mean, a really cool part about Pipe Classic, being able to get a judge's pass, talk to the competitors, give feedback. So we want the same thing with the online, the Instagram, the Facebook, the YouTube. You know, what do you like about this? And checking in, we've got some awesome folks on the YouTube tonight. Big shout out to Torch Talk. They're one of our overall sponsors. We've got a bunch of awesome ones, including Vermont Cannabis Solutions here in Vermont, Glass Vegas, Glass Alchemy, Flow Magazine, Fat Guy Edibles, Green State Gardener, the Min's Pipe Show, Sunset Lake CBD, presenting our entire bracket as well. We already talked about Torch Talk. Shout out to all you folks out there. Appreciate you. And Iaso Goods, phenomenal manufacturing company here in Vermont. So, Raj, before we send folks off and come back tomorrow night, what are some things that you're thinking about with these pieces, and maybe sort of what are some trends that you see emerging besides a lot of votes, a lot of activity here?
Well, when I first looked at the lineup, the first two things that struck me is that there is a lot of competitors whose main strength is construction and assembly. And that meant we were going to see some insane pieces, and we certainly have. The matchups we got coming up are getting tighter and tighter. I mean, at this point, it's just in the voters' hands.
So, I mean, I think that's what we're going to see really is what is resonating with people, and also who can help get their folks motivated. You know, because this is a very messy, true democracy here, and that it's about absolute numbers. So we see vote tallies coming in already. We've got tight matchups, but we're going to be coming back tomorrow, Wednesday, the 22nd. We already mentioned that we've got an IG Live. That's going to be with Captain Crunk. That's going down on the Pipe Classic Instagram. So hope you're following the Burn Gallery. Got to be following the Pipe Classic Instagram. That's where a lot of the stuff's going down, including Captain Crunk, a.k.a. Krunkelstein. And that is presented by North Jersey Diamond Wheel. So that's going on tomorrow. We've had glass drops going on each of the last few days. check out the burngallery.com website, because people can actually bid on these and buy these pieces. You know, I mean, it's great that we get a chance to highlight them, you know, and get a chance to see them here. But ultimately, this is about the artists, you know, about collectors, about being able to get this functional art out there into people's hands and functioning. And if you're going to be using that art functionally, make sure you're cleaning it off with your fresh glass coat here. Again, just one of the no-brainer, you know, sponsors making the bracket possible tonight, and just one of those things that you don't think about until you see that gross piece sitting there and you're embarrassed. So take care of your heady rigs out there. Big shout out to Fresh Glassco. Raj, I know that we've got, maybe we want to preview a little bit more here just before we sign off. You got a huge interview coming up later this week.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about, you know, some OGs like Snodgrass who are, you know, so hard to nail down. You actually went all the way to Pennsylvania for a special interview, right? You want to tell these guys who you talked to?
Well, I got the very much privileged to talk to Willie and Wally and get their whole story and about how, you know, the Glass Torch Technology Company evolved over time and the hardships they went through and the trials and tribulations, and really, you know, just a good backstory on who they are as people. I feel like the industry doesn't know. They don't come out to a lot of events like they used to, and there's a lot of new glassblowers out there who may not even know who they are, even though they, you know, use their torches. So we really got a good opportunity to showcase that, and I'm super excited for everyone to see that.
Awesome. Well, huge shout out to you for being able to get that, and to everybody for making that happen. Glass Torch Technologies and Moodmats, thank you again, our presenting sponsors. We talked about tonight's Bracket Breakdown Live sponsor, Fresh Glass Co. a ton. Sunset Lake CBD, you'll see them all week presenting our entire bracket. And then we've got a bunch of other main event sponsors. Want to give a special shout out to them all one more time: Vermont Cannabis Solutions, Glass Vegas, Glass Alchemy, Flow Magazine, Fat Guy Edibles, Green State Gardener, the Min's Pipe Show, Sunset Lake CBD, Torch Talk. See you out there in the chat. Don't be betting on pipe competitions. The Pete Rose of the glass game out there. Hilarious. And also EASO Goods. Tomorrow's IG Live going to be brought to us by North Jersey Diamond Wheel, and that is at 5:30. So tune in. Stay in touch. Follow these totals throughout the day. Follow all these artists. Make sure that you are following us here at Burn Gallery and Pipe Classic. For the Canaplanners team, the Burn Gallery team, my host, Raj and Tech, I am Eli Harrington, signing off from the Cyber Pipe Showdown. We will see you folks back here tomorrow. And as always, may the best glass win. Good night.